When I was a young boy, I would visit my grandma and grandpa, and every night one of my cousins would have a folklore to tell. During that time, I used to believe the stories because they always had a lesson at the end. But some were just funny stories to get us laughing. For example, the story of how the monkey got a hairless butt. But that's another story for another time. Hi, welcome to Divine Plot Twist. I'm a residential scholar from the School of Hard Knocks, and today we are looking into the story of Adam and Eve, one of the most well known tales in the Bible. You know, the one about a perfect paradise, a single forbidden fruit, and a fateful choice that supposedly changed the course of humanity forever. But what if I told you none of it make any sense? Today, we are going to break this story apart piece by piece, looking at the science, the logic, and the inconsistencies that make these the most questionable stories in the religious history. Now, according to the Bible, Adam and Eve were the very first humans created by God just a few thousand years ago. But here's the problem. In Genesis 1:26, man and woman were created simultaneously. And it's not until Genesis chapter 2 do we get to know Adam and Eve. And I know some of you will state that Genesis 2 explains Genesis 1, but you're wrong. But we will cover that in a different episode. Science tells a completely different story. The Earth is approximately 4.5 billion years old, and the fossil records show that humans evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. We have discovered early hominid fossils dating back over 6 million years, leading to species like Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and eventually Homo sapiens. So, where exactly do Adam and Eve fit in? If they were the first humans, why does genetics tell us otherwise? Here's something most religious believers don't consider. Genetics proves that humans did not originate from two people. If we had, the human species would have suffered from extreme genetic bottlenecks, leading to mass inbreeding and diseases. The diversity of human DNA today is clear evidence that our ancestors came from a much larger population. At least several thousand individuals, not just two. This completely contradicts Adam and Eve's story. Now, let's talk about the so-called justice of this story. Imagine a God who creates humans without the ability to know right from wrong, then punishes them for making the wrong choice. Adam and Eve, according to the story, had no knowledge of good and evil until after they ate the fruit. So how could they have understood the consequences of their actions? How could they even comprehend what disobedience meant if they had no moral awareness yet? It's like punishing a newborn for crying too much. This isn't justice, it's absurdity. And let's not forget, the punishment didn't just affect Adam and Eve. According to Christian doctrine, every human being who has ever lived is punished for their mistakes. Imagine a court sentencing an entire nation to life in prison because of what one person did centuries ago. Would that be considered fair? Of course not. Yet this is exactly what Adam and Eve's story asks us to accept. Now, let's zoom in on that for a moment. The famous forbidden fruit scene. Eve is alone, chilling in the garden, and along comes a talking serpent. Yes, a talking snake. And we're just supposed to roll with that? The serpent tells her, "You won't die if you eat the fruit. God just doesn't want you to be like him, knowing good and evil." Did the serpent actually lie at this stage? Because they don't die, do they? But hold up. She's never had a lie before. She's never been deceived. She has no concept of manipulation. And the first time anyone lies to her, it's a reptile offering a fruit snack with a side of cosmic knowledge. Would you expect someone with zero life experience to hold up against that kind of a pitch? Let's break this down. So, God creates a tree. He doesn't want them to touch it, in Adam and Eve, then places it right in the middle of the garden. Prime real estate. He creates a talking serpent with full persuasive skills, lets him roam freely, and watches silently as the scene unfolds. It's like watching a toddler in a room full of knives and blaming them for getting cut. Now, imagine that Yahweh is telling Eve, hey, don't touch this attractive fruit, Eve. I know you've never seen deception, or neither do you know consequences, or ever felt pain before, but just trust me, okay? Now imagine that. It's like placing cookies on a table and telling the kid, do not touch those cookies, then walk out the room and expect them not to touch the cookies. But hey, let's not forget about Adam. He takes the fruit like it's free samples at Costco. No resistance, no questioning, just chomp, and suddenly, boom, cosmic punishment. All of a sudden, he has to till the ground to provide food for his family, and Eve has to feel pain when bringing forth children. I mean, what a mess. So, let's recap. A talking animal lies to a woman who has no idea what a lie is. She eats one piece of fruit, and then all of humanity is cursed forever. This is not a moral story. It's a divine setup, if you ask me. And what about the serpent? In some interpretations, it's Satan. In others, just a snake got allowed to talk and tempt. Either way, why allow this at all? If God is all powerful and all knowing, why let this creature interfere? Why not step in before the bite? He could have popped out of a cloud like, hey, hands off the apple, Eve. But nope. Silence. And after the deed is done, instead of educating or giving them warnings, he causes the snake to crawl on its belly for eternity. Wait, was it walking before? The snakes have legs until this moment? So, evolution after all is real. Just extremely petty, right? Of course, I'm kidding. One of the most disturbing aspects of this story is the idea of origin of sin. The belief that every human is born sinful because of Adam and Eve's actions. Think about it. You are supposedly guilty of something that happened before you were even born. Imagine being told that you are responsible for a crime your ancestors committed 6,000 years ago. In any other context, this would be outrageous. But in religion, it's considered a core belief. This belief has been used for centuries to control or to justify control, shame, and even oppression. It teaches people that they are broken by default, and only through religious obedience can they be saved from a punishment they never deserved in the first place. Meanwhile, science offers a far more rational explanation for human origins. We weren't placed in a magical garden. We evolved. We adapted. We learned. We discovered. Our knowledge didn't come from a single bite of fruit. It came from centuries of trial and error, innovation, and exploration. The more we understand about our universe, the clearer it becomes that the Adam and Eve story was nothing more than a myth, one of many creation stories invented by Asian cultures. And here is something even more revealing. Adam and Eve are not unique. Nearly every ancient civilization had its own creation story. The Sumerians had Enki and Nagasaki, or Nahasag, can pronounce it right. The Greeks the Greeks had Prometheus, who was punished for bringing knowledge to humanity. Even in older Mesopotamian myths, we see striking similar themes of gods creating humans and punishing them for seeking wisdom. The Adam and Eve story is just one of many recycled myths from the ancient world. The Kikuyus have their own, Kikuyu and Mombi. Okay? I mean, this is not new. And let us not forget they were supposed to die, but obviously they didn't. But I like the idea that Dr. James Tabor floats around. That makes a little sense than a spiritual death counter argument. So, what does this leave us? If Adam and Eve never existed, does that mean that morality is meaningless? Not at all. Human societies have developed ethics based on empathy, reason, and cooperation. Not because of divine punishment, but because we are social beings who thrive when we work together. We don't need an ancient myth to tell us right from wrong. Heck, the Egyptians had the Ma'at, that's what guided them. So here's a real question. If the Adam and Eve story doesn't align with science, if the punishment makes no sense, if the concept of original sin is deeply flawed, and if similar myths exist across cultures, why do so many people still believe? Maybe it's time to question the narrative. Maybe it's time to think for ourselves. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all. See you on the next one. Peace.